Friends, it's that time again to do our monthly deep dive on Disneyland Forward. And since shovels haven't hit the ground yet, let me try to break down one of the biggest questions that I get. What exactly is the plan with Rainforest Cafe? Brickey here for your monthly breakdown of Disneyland Forward updates. I've divided the park up into 5 different zones. Each week I cover a different zone and its construction update. It's time to do my favorite one, Disneyland Forward. To keep going on this journey with me, make sure you hit subscribe. That way you won't miss a beat on what's happening at the parks, broken down by a professional designer who works in the world of creativity and creative project management. So I kind of have a beat on how these things work. Let's jump in. I'm so excited to talk about this one and share with you what I discovered this week as I was studying Disneyland's past to help better predict its future. Disney fans have noticed that in downtown Disney, nearly every single building has been touched, remodeled, or repurposed, except for one. And today we're going to break down why I believe this is happening and what this building right here has to do with the future of Disneyland Forward. And it makes sense why people are so curious about this building. I don't think most fans realize just how big this building is, but some have clued in to the fact that it's not being used to its full potential. Even though in 2020 it was edited to have the Star Wars trading post inside of it, it is largely, and I mean largely, underused. So when we walk through the west end of downtown Disney, nearly every single piece is unrecognizable from back when Disney was going to build a hotel here. I put up a video about it yesterday on the main channel, Hey Brickey, breaking down the how and why and what the hotel was going to be. But today I wanted to look at another why on the list. Why hasn't this changed and what does it mean for the future? This area is completely unrecognizable. And when we look at historic footage, they took down everything and they're currently moving on the last piece, the ESPN zone, to turn it into a place that will house different shops. So why would they go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, putting in a park, restaurants, shopping, creating a whole new aesthetic, and recently kind of driving this home even more, even tearing down Tortilla Joe's completely to the foundation? They have gone through downtown Disney, specifically, even more so, the western end, and basically given everything a new life. Except for the one location fans keep asking about. And I think one of the reasons why people keep asking about it is an absolutely massive, massive structure. One that towers over the northwest end of downtown Disney with its Aztec ruin type tower that peers out over is really kind of like the tallest landmark in the back end of downtown Disney. The Star Wars shop in the front, but also as you walk around the back, it has its own water system around it. Like, even though Earl of Sandwich has a pretty big temporary location out front, it still looms over everything around it. And another curiosity is that it still has the old sort of kitschy aesthetic. It used to be everything in downtown Disney kind of had a roller coaster tycoon vibe to it. Like the building looked like what was inside. They've since abandoned that and gone for a more unified, slick mid-century California aesthetic. Except for this location, it still looks very cartoony. And the Star Wars mantra is doing a little bit of heavy lifting, but overall, it has become the one building that really stands out. And like I said, even more so now that the cartoony Tortilla Joe's has been removed. And the Star Wars trading post, I believe that this is an item of necessity, not something that they had a long-term plan for. Because back in 2020, they had a newly opened Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Disneyland's biggest expansion in its history that none of the guests could go to because the park legally couldn't open. So if you think about the massive amount of merchandise that was probably showing up daily to Disney's warehouse, and they had no way to move this merchandise, investing a little bit of money into this building and making a quick problem-solving solution to give fans a way to buy Star Wars and to help them move some of these units was probably a win-win of desperation. And hey, as a fan, getting a little bit of new Disney during those times felt like a dream come true. It was very wild to go from covering a whole new land to being excited about getting a shop. And a shop that I want to point out that I would bet maybe at the most takes up 20% of the ground floor of this restaurant. But this building, as I've said, it's huge. It has a massive first floor. It is a building that also has its own basement, and the second floor above it has an unused patio, a massive amount of indoor space, as well as its own separate kitchen. The basement is interesting because although there are few basements inside of Disneyland proper, because they just didn't do that in 55, some have been added to Tomorrowland, Galaxy's Edge, and New Orleans Square, but the basement here gives a unique opportunity for operations to do something big in this space. Now, why Disney would only use a small section of the ground floor, to me says they didn't want to go all the way, they just wanted to patch a pandemic problem. But a big clue here is that the second floor has its own restaurant capabilities, and they're not using it. Do you know how easy it would be to bring in a tenant to serve people food out of this second floor? With the building's unique design aesthetic, you could easily do an Indiana Jones restaurant, a Society of Explorers and Adventurers, or even Star Wars. Like if Disney wanted to go all in on a themed restaurant, this could become one of the hottest tickets at the resort, and this is the proper space for it. Because when you're doing the high volume but expanded experience inside of the theme parks, I think you always have a collision of more people want it that can get it. So you end up with the silly 45-minute rule, and it just doesn't make it fun. But when you get outside of the park, that's where I think these ideas have a way to shine. Cruise ships, hotels, Trader Sam's. Like if this were to become a themed dining experience, I think this could be a massive win and one of the hottest reservations to get, not only at the resort, but all of Orange County. So friends, I don't know shit about shit, and I just gave you several different case studies on how this space could be fully used to its potential. Imagine what kind of ideas Disney would have that knows the proper layout and scope of what could happen. I'm just speculating, but my speculations are probably building up a good case about why not this structure. Let's talk about it. I did a big deep dive over the last couple of weeks about the canceled hotel that was going to go right where I'm standing. And the more I dug into this hotel that most fans didn't like the way that it looked, and I agreed, I did realize that this hotel did have a level of Disney magic embedded inside of it. And a big part of what was going to make that hotel have some sort of Disney experience and feeling, even though aesthetically it didn't really look like a Disney hotel because it was contracted to a Las Vegas hotel design group. This building right here was going to be kind of what would rival the Contemporary out on the East Coast, because the monorail would have pulled into the hotel's lobby, and that lobby was going to sit right where I'm standing, right where this building is standing. So if you can imagine what it would have been like for your monorail to come and go from a hotel lobby, just like it does the Contemporary, although not at the same level of epicness, there's only one Contemporary, you get a better idea of what Disney's full perspective of what this piece of land can ultimately do. That would make this a absolutely epic addition to the Disneyland Resort. And I think that's an addition that they probably don't want to turn their back on, especially now that they have got Disneyland Forward Pass, and Disney and Anaheim have worked together to loosen up the old restrictive zoning laws. There's a whole new potential of what could happen right here. So even though myself and many fans have thrown out ideas, I bet our ideas probably look very short-term in their thinking compared to whatever Disney's long-term plans for this space may be. Let's kind of break down where this could go. Because if Disney does decide to build another theme park over here in the parking lot or expand Disneyland, the monorail's placement will absolutely be crucial to that fan experience. If this becomes more Disneyland, keeping the monorail as a true Disneyland attraction that allows only guests with the Disney ticket and reservation to go from the interior of the park to its outer rim. That would be a huge bonus. But let's think for a minute. What if Disney goes back to the hotel plan and they go with the Disneyland Paris look, where if there's a theme park over here, they want to sort of create an outer berm of hotel space. Having the monorail go into that new hotel will differentiate it from the other 3 hotels at the resort. I think giving it a truly pristine price point, especially if it also has direct theme park access and views. We have now gone way beyond a restaurant or a shop in the scope of its potential. But in all honesty, we've probably only scratched the dent on the potential of what could go here. And I'm sure Disney has had all of these ideas and more, and they've ultimately come to the realization by leaving this building untouched, Disney keeps all doors open to opportunities in the future. So I would definitely not claim that this building is being neglected or forgotten. Not at all. I categorize this right where we put Garden Walk. This is Disney playing the long game, waiting for the perfect time to make the right move. I used to write off this space right here as a spot that Disney wasn't touching. They were doing things internally in here. This is where they would let their entertainers do, rehearsals and stuff before doing things in the park. But I kind of had this spot earmarked as this is a gateway to what's coming next. But then my very first video of 2025 was breaking down that they are actually taking this, putting a couple of $1 million into it. Not an insane amount of money for Disney, an insane amount of money for you and me, but for the Disney buck, a little on the low end, to bring in some different shops and amenities. I believe there's going to be 2 stores and a restaurant, and that's kind of what we know right now. Lululemon's definitely confirmed. But I had this earmarked as a massive do not touch zone just because this would create the biggest opening into the parking lot. But then again, I also had this area right here earmarked as a do not touch spot. Because either this location or the other location would be needed if this were to ever become a standalone theme park. But in many ways, I think Din Tai Fung not only changed the overall aesthetic of downtown Disney, but it also changed the plan. A key anchor in this breezeway to the future, I think that really shook up what they were looking to do. So putting a grand entry across from one of your top tier clients maybe wasn't what Disney wanted to do. But it does leave the idea to have a grand entry right across from a grand park. I think that this is how the pieces have kind of fallen. And what's interesting about this downtown Disney plan and looking at the hotel for this week's video is it does seem like for a company that's normally pretty aggressive and pretty well planned out, downtown Disney in patches and spots does feel like a lot of afterthoughts kind of all put together. Like they're making up the plan as the pieces fall into place. That is unusually Disney. But holding on to the Rainforest Cafe building is classic Disney. And hey, they got rid of every tenant possible when they were going to get the tax incentive to do a hotel. So the amount of money they put into this building wouldn't be do or die for a theme park. I just think it kind of gives an idea of where they're at today. And that could definitely change as time goes on and new opportunities arise. Disney is opportunistic. That's how you last 100 years. There were some fans that looked at the DisneylandForward concept artwork, and in their minds, they saw what they could recognize as a standalone park being on the west side of Disneyland, thinking that Disney would put a third gate over here. And I can see why they would think that, because if you massaged every parcel of land around the hotels, physically it does look possible. But I think what has probably thrown that whole idea out the window is this building right behind me. Because this, as I was seeing it, was the space that they were leaving open as a grand entryway for this third gate to get down to Gate 1, Disneyland, and Gate 2, DCA. But with now Earl plugging in that gap, in that hole, where's the grand entryway to get to this new park? Because if you look at the downtown Disney entrance, which I won't film for security and safety reasons, it's small, it's modest, and it's also how people get into downtown Disney. If that were to guide people over into a third gate, that is maybe 25%, or if I'm being fully optimistic, 30% of the overall width needed for Disneyland and DCA. So in many ways, I thought that would never happen. I feel like this building showing up right here was the death mark on that idea, fully firewalling this all into hotels in downtown Disney, leaving the parcels of land on each side that we saw in the DisneylandForward concept artwork as to be extensions of the core theme parks. Make the parks bigger, make them too much to do in a day, sell more hotel tickets. Which that gets into the idea of, could they be resurrecting some of the idea of the canceled hotel? And that's why Rainforest Cafe sits the way that it does. Because if they do put in more theme park here and an entire third gate at the Toy Story parking lot, they are going to need to create hotels. And I think hotels make very interesting and lucrative berms to keep the magic enclosed, but also to sell a premium magic viewpoint. Just a thought of how this could go. From the exterior, this building clearly shows how it is attached to whatever would come next. If Disney wanted to claim this parcel of land for a hotel that had the monorail going right inside of it, it would work absolutely perfectly. But if this does become a theme park, this area right here would be the perfect breezeway to allow people into this Disneyland expansion. Although I would have to guess that they would probably go hotel, creating a berm, into the theme park. That would seem the most Disney way, doing a little bit of Tokyo Disney Sea action right here. But this building has an unbelievable opportunity that few buildings possess in downtown Disney. So what fans may see as a wasted space, Disney sees as an opportunity to not waste an opportunity. So then suddenly the why nothing happens at the Rainforest Cafe argument starts to become, I wonder when something is going to happen at the Rainforest Cafe thought balloon. And this building becomes a symbol for something even bigger that could happen down the road, and probably something we'd be more happier that we get than whatever sort of quick fix they could throw in there just to make a buck or two in the interim. Friends, I break down DisneylandForward once a month, kind of giving you an idea of the plan's full potential. Watch this video right here if you want to see how it's all going to kick off at the beginning of next year. Thank you so much for showing up. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and thank you to my Magic Brickey holders for making it possible. I appreciate you.